My coffee machine gurgled and hissed as I filled the mug, the metallic taste of the first sip coating my tongue. Steam curled in the cool kitchen air, mingling with the faint aroma of pine from the candle Emily had lit this morning. Outside, traffic's low hum drifted through the open window, punctuated by Emma's laughter and Luke's toy car squeals in the living room. Morning routine, I reminded myself, smile at the kids, pack their lunches, drop them at school. But then my phone buzzed on the counter, an unknown number glaring back at me. Unknown. I set the mug down, fingers skidding across the chipped oak countertop. The click of the burner extinguishing punctuated the sudden hush. My heart jolted as I swiped to unlock. Check attached. Emily at Carter's house last night. No signature, just those words. My pulse spiked, blood thrumming in my ears as I tapped the link. The image loaded, Emily's car parked under a dim porch light, Noah Carter's house number glowing on the mailbox. My breath caught, eyes flicking between the frozen snapshot and the swirl of steam still rising from my coffee. No, no, no. The mug clattered to the floor, coffee sloshing in a brown arc across the tile. It hissed against the heat of the moment as I backed away, heart pounding so loud I swore I could hear its echo in the walls. I pressed my palm to the counter for support, focusing on the hum outside, reminding myself, stay present. Breathe. I crouched and scooped up the mug, ignoring the scald of leftover coffee on my hand. The children's laughter from the living room felt distant, like another life. My watch's second hand ticked audibly against the glass face, each click a countdown to something I didn't yet understand. Emily at Carter's house last night. I splashed cold water on my face, relishing the shock of cold against my skin. The kettle's whistle shrieked without me noticing, and I grabbed it to refill my mug. The scent of pine and damp grass invaded my senses as I carried the coffee back, mouth dry. I forced myself to wrap both hands around the warm ceramic, inhaling its aroma. Come. Act with intention. I rifled through the mug's chairside drawer, yanked out our home phone, and dialed Emily's cell. It rang twice, and then her voicemail, "Hey, it's me. I'm busy right now. Leave a message." I didn't leave one. Instead, I hung up and grabbed my jacket, its soft cotton smelled like her perfume. In the hallway, I passed the kids' mural, Emma's stick figure family, Luke's scribbled sons. My chest tightened. I tried dialing Emily again, but it went straight to voicemail. I clicked my tongue against the roof of my mouth and turned the knob on the front door. Outside, the citrus-scented breeze swirled around me as I jogged to the car, leaving the front door ajar so the children's laughter might follow me. I punched in Noah Carter's number from memory, heart sinking as each ring echoed in my ear. He answered on the third ring, his calm voice layered with surprise. "Ethan." "Yes. I saw a photo of my wife's car outside your house around midnight. Care to explain?" His silence dragged on until the line crackled. "There's no easy way to say this, she's been coming for sessions. Last night was different. Different." A gust of traffic noise blanketed the line. I closed my eyes, pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, and felt my grandfather's watch cold against my wrist. Its steady tick grounded me, a reminder that time still moved forward, even when my world blurred. "Noah, I'll be there in 5 minutes." I slammed the door shut, the lock's click echoing in the quiet cul-de-sac. As I peeled out of the driveway, the mug of coffee I'd nearly abandoned flicked against the cup holder, sloshing bitter droplets onto my lap. The engine's roar felt like a drumbeat syncing with my pulse as I sped down the pine-lined streets toward Carter's house. The scent of coffee on my breath clashed with the pine and gasoline as I rounded the corner. Yellow porch lights illuminated Emily's car again, now empty, the engine cold. I parked 2 driveways down, heart pounding so hard I could almost hear it in the rearview mirror. Above, the cicadas droned, a chaotic soundtrack to my shock. I gripped the edge of the door, my watch's second hand clicking away, marking seconds I could never retrieve. Stay present. Act with intention. I stepped out into the warm morning air and walked toward the porch, each footstep a drumbeat of determination. Inside wait truths I wasn't ready to hear, but I would face them, steady and resolute. The coffee's tang lingered in my mouth as I rang the bell, bracing for the moment my world fractured forever. I drove home in near silence, the pine-scented wind slipping through the cracked window. My grandfather's watch ticked steadily on my wrist, its rhythmic pulse a steady reminder that time marched on, no matter how jagged my world felt. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine, letting the engine's hum fade into the distance. The house stood quiet, sun filtering through the living room curtains. Emma and Luke were probably inside, lost in cartoons. Stepping through the front door, my footsteps halted at the threshold. The aroma of vanilla from Emily's diffuser lingered in the air, a scent that once felt comforting, now acidic on my tongue. I glanced at the mural on the wall, Emma's hand-drawn stick figures, each wearing a bright smile, Luke's crayon sons hovering above the family. Their innocence pierced me with both warmth and dread. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of water and watched ripples spread across its surface. I traced the condensation with my fingertip, mind drifting back to a Sunday morning last autumn. Emily had been crouched in the living room, surrounded by hardwood samples and paint swatches. Our daughter toddled toward her, clutching a stuffed bear, eyes wide and trusting. Emily scooped her up, whispering, "Mama's building a home for us, sweetheart." I had watched that scene from the threshold, coffee mug in hand, heart swelling with pride. Today, that memory felt like a blurred photograph. I set the glass on the counter and lifted the mail that lay on the kitchen table. Most were bills and flyers, but one stood out, a receipt from Carter and Associates, dated 2 Thursdays ago, for couples therapy session, $220. My pulse tightened. Emily had never mentioned couples therapy. I tucked the receipt into my pocket and continued to sift through the mail, finding a glossy invitation to her art show next month, another flyer for a local parenting workshop, and a small envelope addressed to Ethan Solis in Emily's handwriting. Inside was a single photograph, the three of us on the 4th of July, Emma sitting on my shoulders, Luke dangling ice pops from his fingers, and Emily's laughter frozen as fireworks blossomed overhead. We looked like perfection. I let the photo slip back into the envelope, sliding it into my pocket as well. I walked toward the living room, where Emma and Luke's voices drifted through the baby monitor. The click of the monitor's button under my finger felt heavy. I heard Emma giggle, then Luke's clumsy voice, "Dad, look, airplane." Their laughter made my chest ache. I remembered how I used to join them at breakfast, the three of us pressed around the table, syrup dripping from their pancakes. Emily would reach over to brush a sticky wisp from my hair, her eyes soft. That memory settled into my bones, but another flickered, the night I woke to a lit screen on our nightstand, Emily's phone, and saw a message from N. Carter at 11:47 p.m. I hovered, thumb trembling before she rolled over, murmuring, "Just checking in on a patient." I believed her then. How easily I believed. I sat on the couch and lifted my grandfather's old watch, studying its face. Its ticking echoed in the room like a heartbeat. Emma's tiny footsteps approached, she climbed onto my lap, clutching her stuffed bear. Her head rested against my chest, and she whispered, "Daddy, read me a story." I smiled and gathered her close, read her favorite tale about a brave knight and a gentle dragon. Her eyes fluttered as sleep weighed on her. She curled into me, and I felt both warmth and a wrenching knot in my stomach. Luke's footsteps followed, and he clutched his toy train, his eyes bright. "Daddy, can we build blocks?" he asked. I nodded, hugging them both. With the children settled, I carried Emma to her room, tucking her under a train-patterned blanket. I brushed her hair and kissed her forehead. "Daddy loves you," I whispered. She mumbled, "Love you too," and closed her eyes. In the hallway, Luke yanked me toward his room, where he'd stacked blocks into a crooked tower. I rumbled a playful attack to knock it down, and his delighted laughter filled the hallway. I snapped a mental picture, my heart both buoyed and shattered. Back in the now quiet living room, I replayed the morning's revelation. The car in Noah's driveway. Noah's admission on the phone. Emily's late-night messages. I traced the line of the watch's face with my fingertip one last time before sliding it back onto my wrist. The memories, family breakfasts, bedtime stories, 4th of July fireworks, felt tainted by the knowledge that Emily's presence with us was stained by lies. My hand brushed the edge of the coffee table, recalling how I first met her in college art class, how she lit up around a canvas, how we bonded over lattes at a small cafe. Those memories stood in stark contrast to now, Emily slipping out in the dark, her car prowling under unexpected porch lights. Every small cyanide mist rose to the surface, the unexplained work trips she'd taken, the wavering tone in her voice when I asked about late meetings, the clinking of keys at odd hours. I'd brushed them aside, labeled them stress, busy season, or just friendship. The heartache of realizing my own denial stung more than the betrayal itself. I exhaled, muscles tense. The watch ticked on, reminding me that every second since the text from the unknown number carved a new path forward. I rose, smoothing the wrinkles of my shirt, and braced myself for what came next. Emma and Luke's laughter was a distant echo now, fuel for a resolve that burned quiet and steady. I would protect their world, piece together the truth, and act with the clear-headed precision these memories demanded. The storm in my mind settled into a determined calm as I crossed the living room, grandfather's watch shining on my wrist, marking each step toward answers. The humid Florida air clung to my skin as I stepped out of the car into the parking lot behind Carter and Associates. My grandfather's watch sat heavy on my wrist, its second hand ticking like a metronome, calling out each moment since Emily's phone call. I hadn't intended to come back here, certainly not today, but a voice drifting through the open office window drew me closer. I'd driven by earlier this week and noticed Emily's car parked at odd hours. I chalked it up to late-night art sessions, but something in the back of my mind refused to let it go. This morning, I planned to stop by just to gather my composure, maybe even apologize if I was wrong. But as I passed the frosted glass door, I heard Emily's voice, soft and wistful, floating out into the corridor. "I can't keep pretending, Noah. I love you." Her tone was hushed, fragile, desperate. My breath caught, and I halted in the shade of a palm tree. The leaves rustled overhead as if urging me to move forward, confront what I already suspected. Because that word, love, wasn't something she could feel for a therapist. It wasn't part of her healing, it was something else entirely. I stepped to the window and peered in. Emily sat in Dr. Carter's leather chair, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Noah leaned forward, brow furrowed, one foot propped on the edge of his desk. His typically composed expression was strained. "Emily, you know this is against everything I stand for. Boundaries, ethics, you know we can't, but I feel it, too. I feel you." My chest tightened as I watched her nod, hands gripping the armrests. I could almost hear the faint click of my heart shattering. The office's muted lighting cast them both in half-shadows, as if they were already in another world I'd been excluded from. I swallowed and pressed my palm against the glass. In that instant, everything crystallized, no more doubts, no more, maybe it's nothing. I turned and walked away, mind spinning faster than the watch's second hand. My legs trembled as I climbed into the car, heart pounding in sync with the engine's rumble. Back home, I paced the living room, hands clenching into fists then unclenching. Emma and Luke's laughter echoed from the backyard, Emma reciting a new song she'd learned in school, Luke scolding his toy dinosaur as they played. The normalcy of their world pressed against my panic, reminding me of what I stood to lose. Protect them. Gather proof. Act with intention. I sat at my desk, headphones in hand, and dialed my brother Mark's number. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm and reassuring. "Mark, I need your help. It's Emily, she's been seeing Dr. Noah Carter, as more than a therapist." He was silent for a moment. "Are you certain, Ethan?" I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "I heard them. I know what I heard. I need to build a case, for custody, for the kids. I need a plan." "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll clear my schedule. Meet me at the firm this afternoon. Document everything you can, phone records, visit logs, any messages. And, this is important, get a counselor for the kids now. They're too young to process this alone." I thanked him and hung up, feeling both relief at taking steps forward and the ache of every tick of the watch. I opened Emily's laptop, left unlocked in her haste to leave this morning, and navigated to her email. There it was, appointment confirmations from Carter and Associates, each time-stamped and sealed in digital form. I printed them, a string of sessions dating back 2 months. Each cost over $200. I circled each date in red. Next, I scanned the stockpile of photographs she kept, family portraits we'd taken last summer at the beach, our wedding album on her desktop. Now, hidden among them, were blurred shots of Emily leaving Carter's office late at night, frame captures the private investigator I'd hired last week had emailed me. I placed those prints beside the appointment receipts on the desk, alongside a screen capture of her text to Noah 2 nights ago, "I feel lost without you." I taped them neatly to a corkboard, documents that would become Exhibit A in my case. By mid-afternoon, I headed to the law firm. Mark greeted me in his office, nodding as I laid out the materials: appointment receipts, text transcripts, private investigator photos, and a printed summary of my grandfather's watch, which I considered exhibit symbolica but hadn't yet decided how to use. The watch was more than a timepiece, it was my anchor, my way of measuring every moment since I sensed something was wrong. I slid it onto the desk, the ticking suddenly loud against the hum of overhead lights. "We'll start with temporary custody," Mark said, flipping through the pages. "We'll file an injunction to prevent her from unmonitored visits until this is resolved. The children's well-being is priority one. Next, we'll subpoena Carter's client logs, proof he violated professional ethics. That gives us leverage for defamation and malpractice claims." His tone was clinical, almost comforting in its logic. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "What about Emily?" I asked. "She's fragile, she's our kid's mother. I don't want to destroy her life completely." He exhaled slowly. "We'll proceed gently. But you have to think of your children first. If Emily truly has an affair with her therapist, that's a clear dereliction of her parental duties. We'll insist she enrolls in mandatory counseling and supervised visitation. For Carter, we aim for professional sanctions, a medical board hearing." I rubbed my wrist, feeling the weight of the watch again. Act with intention. Leaving the firm, I wondered how I'd been blind. Emily, so vibrant at art shows in Denver, always seeking new gallery clients here in Palm Beach, how had I missed the late-night texts from a number I didn't recognize, the glazed look in her eyes as she talked about compassion after her sessions? I resolved to close those blind spots. Back home, I set up the first of our children's therapy sessions. Dr. Singh, a child psychologist Mark recommended, met me in our living room. I introduced Emma to an art journal to draw her feelings. Luke got a set of finger paints to express himself. Dr. Singh observed, nodding as Emma sketched a house on a hill, almost like ours, but without parents in the windows. "Art is their language now," she said quietly. "Their impressions will tell us how they feel." I watched Emma's brow furrow as she colored, and my heart broke. My resolve hardened. I would see this through without losing my children's innocence. That evening, I met Carla at our favorite cafe, a shaded patio under swaying palms, the rich aroma of espresso in the air. Her warm hug felt like a lifeline. "You're doing the right thing, ***, she said gently, sliding a pile of notes across the table. "I talked to Dr. Singh, she wants to see Luke Tuesday, Emma Wednesday. I also called a forensic accountant to review your finances. We'll track Emily's clinic payments, any unexplained charges go directly to our case." I sipped my black coffee, its bitterness now oddly comforting. Carla's presence steadied me. "Thank you," I said. "I don't know how I would do this without you." She smiled, but her eyes were solemn. "We'll get through it together. Just remember, this is about protecting the children and reclaiming your life, not revenge." I nodded, storing her words for the battles ahead. That night, the house felt cavernous. I held the watch close, listening to its ticking as I compiled a timeline on my laptop. Each therapy appointment, each private investigator photo, each overheard confession, they all fell into place like a jigsaw puzzle. My grief was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but submerged under a calm, calculated purpose. I paused and glanced at Emma's sketch resting on the corkboard, her little house without parents. I placed a new photo beside it, the four of us last summer, arms linked on the beach. Our smiles were genuine then, and I refused to let this betrayal erase everything they represented. The watch's ticking echoed in the quiet. Tomorrow, I would file the injunction for custody. I would subpoena Carter's clinic records. Step by step, I would expose this affair, not from a place of vengeance, but from a place of necessity, protecting my children and reclaiming our future. As I placed the watch on the nightstand, its steady rhythm accompanied me to bed. In those final moments before sleep, I repeated my mantra, act with intention. Because this path, though strewn with heartbreak, was the only way forward. And I would walk it with unwavering resolve. I parked at a distance from our house and sat in the idling car for a moment, heart still hammering against my ribs. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway. Through the windshield, I saw Emma's pink bicycle lean against the garage wall and Luke's soccer ball resting by the front door. Familiar symbols of innocence, reminding me why I was here. My grandfather's watch throbbed against my wrist. Its steady tick felt louder than ever. I pressed my thumb against the date window, April 22nd. The day I heard Emily's confession at Carter's house. Each second since had led me to this moment, the confrontation. I stepped out and crossed the lawn, chest tightening with each step as I neared the front door. The murmur of Emily's voice drifted through the open window, soft, tentative, then paused abruptly as if she sensed my presence. I knocked firmly. There was a shuffle of movement, then footsteps approaching. Emily opened the door, hair tousled, eyes rimmed red, as if she had been crying. Our children's drawings, taped to the doorframe, Emma's sons, Luke's dinosaurs, greeted me with innocence I'd nearly forgotten I possessed. Emily's gaze darted to the watch on my wrist. Ethan, her voice cracked before she could steady it. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The hallway felt narrower than I remembered, walls closing in as guilt and betrayal pressed around me. In the living room, I caught sight of Luke's blocks arranged in a circle, towering and waiting to be toppled. Emma sat on the sofa, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide with confusion. They had been playing quietly, unaware of the storm about to break. I cleared my throat, releasing a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Emily's shoulders trembled as she followed me to the center of the room. Why? My voice was calm, extinguishing any tremor of desperation. Her eyes filled with tears. Ethan, please. No more please, I said, lifting the grandfather watch and letting its second hand tick in the hush. Look at me, or don't. I know everything. I pressed a photo print into her hand, Emily exiting Carter's house, lit by the porch light, hair catching the glow. She stared, blinking rapidly. I waited while her composure drained away, her shoulders sagging as she recognized the moment captured. You came here to tell me you love him. I whispered, voice low enough that only she could hear. She swallowed. Her sentence fractured. I laid a second piece of evidence on the coffee table, a printed transcript of her text to Noah, I feel alive when I'm with you. Emily's gaze flickered to Emma, who had shuffled closer, nose wrinkled in concern. Luke, cradling his dinosaur, peered at me from behind the couch. My chest tightened further, my betrayal wasn't just against me, it rippled into my children's lives. I swallowed, reminding myself to breathe, to remain the anchor they needed. Tell them, I said, nodding toward the children. Her eyes filled with unshed tears. They don't understand. I inhaled, catching the faint sweetness of her lavender shampoo drifting through the air. They deserve the truth. I crouched and looked Emma in the eyes. Sweetheart, I need you to hear something important. Mommy has been spending nights with Dr. Carter. She and Dr. Carter are not just talking about feelings. She's hurting our family. Emma's lip trembled. Luke's lower lip quivered as he clutched his dinosaur tighter. Emily sank to the floor, arms folding around her knees. I love you, Ethan, Emily began, voice raw. But I didn't know how to be me anymore. Noah, he. Stop, I said gently, though my own throat felt raw. This isn't about you finding yourself. This is about the promises you made. She looked up, eyes glistening. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I replied, rising to my feet. What fixes this is me protecting our children now. I gestured to Mark's signed temporary custody order in the folder I still carried. Emily's eyes widened as I opened it, stipulations mandating her therapy, supervised visitation, and a home evaluation. The heavy weight of the watch on my wrist felt like the final piece of armor. My children clung to each other, faces pale, eyes brimming. I knelt and gathered them into my arms, hugging them tightly. Daddy's here, I whispered, voice steady. Emily remained on the floor, tears falling freely now. I looked at her one last time, at the woman I'd pledged my life to, and felt a quiet ache. But beneath that ache was resolute strength. I stood, lifted the wedding ring from my finger, and placed it on the coffee table beside her. This is over, I said, voice calm, resolute. I promise you, I will keep our family safe. I picked up Emma, then turned to Luke as he toddled toward me, and we left the living room together. My grandfather's watch ticked on my wrist as we passed through the hallway, each step closing a chapter of betrayal and opening a doorway to a new beginning. Weeks later, I stood outside the cold, sterile courtroom waiting area, my grandfather's watch heavy on my wrist. Its steady tick reminded me how far I'd come. The mediator's door opened, and I stepped inside with Emma clutching my hand and Luke perched on my hip. Emily sat across from us, her shoulders drawn inward, eyes red. Between us lay the final custody agreement, sole physical custody granted to me, Emily's visitation once a week under supervised conditions, mandatory counseling for her and the children, and a clause revoking her credit and debit cards until she completed a parenting program. I swallowed as the mediator signed and slid the papers across the table. Emily's hand hovered over the document, trembling, before she pressed her fingertip to the signature line. Her small X felt like a last severing of our bond. I nodded to the mediator, who gave me a sympathetic look, then gathered Emma and Luke and left without glancing back. Outside, the humid Palm Beach air felt strangely welcoming. Emma toddled ahead to the car, pointing at a palm frond dangling overhead. Luke brushed his toy dinosaur across the console, humming a tune. My chest swelled with a bittersweet mix of relief and sorrow. I'd secured their safety, but at the cost of the life I'd once taken for granted. That evening, back at home, I unearthed a new family photograph, our last informal portrait of four, framed and tucked away during the chaos. On the back, Emily's inscription read, "Forever and always." I turned it face down on the mantel, allowing its image to sink into memory. Then I placed a new photograph beside it, Emma and Luke on the beach, arms wrapped around each other, genuine smiles lighting their faces. The contrast captured the journey from betrayal to hopeful renewal. In the quiet of the living room, I poured a glass of iced tea and settled on the sofa, the children's laughter drifting from their shared bedroom. I reached for my laptop and opened a new document titled, "Fragments of Trust." My first post laid out the anatomy of their mother's betrayal and the careful steps I'd taken to protect my children, obtaining surveillance footage, consulting an attorney, securing temporary custody, and structuring Emily's visitation around supervised sessions and therapeutic milestones. I emphasized that this wasn't about vengeance but about stewardship, rebuilding our family's foundation on honesty and safety. Below the post, I added a photo of my grandfather's watch and a caption, "Time heals, but time also demands truth." I saved the draft and leaned back. A soft knock at the door revealed Carla with cups of chamomile tea and a comforting smile. "How are you holding up?" she asked quietly. "I'm moving forward," I replied, voice steady. "For them, for me." I sipped the tea, its warmth spreading through me. As night fell over our home, I heard Emma's gentle snore and Luke's whispered, "Daddy," in his sleep. The watches ticking on the nightstand echoed like a heartbeat, reminding me that time still passed, and every moment offered a chance to grow. I reached out, unsnapped my wedding ring, and laid it beside the old photograph, an emblem of love's fragility and my own rebirth. Tomorrow, I would publish Fragments of Trust and extend a hand to others navigating their own betrayals. Tonight, I would rest in the quiet certainty that, despite everything lost, I had safeguarded what truly mattered. And in that certainty, I found my final form of revenge, inner peace.